The motor of an antique color wheel mounted to a fake palm tree slowly grinds away. The large soiled leaves atop the tree join the muddy blue ceiling. Cut-out silver foil stars are fastened across the dark painted sky. Musicians who have emigrated to New York from Turkey, Greece, and Armenia are playing a haunting instrumental. Serena emerges in a statuesque pose. With graceful snake arm patterns, she interprets the sultry music of the oud, qanun, and clarinet. Though only a few steps from 8th Avenue in the heart of New York City, you'd feel like you were transported to another era, halfway around the world, to the bouzouki taverns of Greece or the meyhane of 1900 Istanbul. Wonderfully dark and dingy, the smells of cooked lamb kebab and ouzo filled the air. The spiraling clouds of cigarette smoke add a surreal, old-world charm. The audience watches hypnotically as Serena undulates, shimmies, and pirouettes with her veil, which angelically floats through the clouds of colored light and wafts of smoke. Serena, in a trance, drifts off to a 1940s tenement in the Bronx. Young Serene sits at her grandmother Stefania's feet, taking every word as she clutches a tattered doll dressed in a harem costume. Spoken softly, with a bittersweet smile and a trace of accent, she sits at the edge of an old wooden chair, hands resting in her lap, eyes drifting between the past and the present. "Ah, my sweet flower, you are so curious about our family. Das is good. You must know where you come from. We are Gutmans, proud, stubborn, but complicated people. Back in Budapest, I was elegant, even when I had nothing. I came from a line of women who knew how to survive anything. I married Andras. Oh, he was handsome then. He had a laugh that could fill a room, and he courted me with the poems and violin music in the square. Everyone said we were the perfect couple. But they didn't know what happened after the doors closed. Andras, he had demons. He drank too much, palinka mostly. He would disappear for days and come back wild, or worse, silent. When he was drunk, he could be cruel. His tongue was sharp, and sometimes his hands were too. I still remember the sound of a bottle hitting the wall and Julia hiding behind the piano, covering her ears. I stayed. What choice did I have? Back then, women did not leave. I protect your mother the best I could. I taught her to be quiet when the shouting started. I taught her how to carry herself like a lady, even when her heart was breaking. I hid bruises behind lace sleeves and smiled in public because that is what Hungarian women did. We endured. We endured everything. The Egyptian Gardens backstage dressing room. It is dimly lit with flickering bulbs. Costumes hang from hooks. Perfume and sweat fill the air. Serena is on stage playing the doumbek along with Chick, the oud player. Serena, the only American belly dancer there, tries to stay out of the drama between the Turkish and Greek dancers. There's been a long-standing historical animosity involving Greece and Turkey. Serena politely calls to the two dancers backstage. It is their turn to dance. The Greek dancer, Yasmin, an arrogant prima donna, takes her time adjusting her beaded bra in the mirror. The Turkish dancer, Denise, confronts her holding a ripped veil. Yasmin, you tore this again. If it came came apart, it's because you stitched like you dance. A spastic drunk. Funny. That veil cost me 3 nights tips. By the way, my dress went missing last week. Oh, I heard it was moths. Or maybe it ran off with your last boyfriend. What's his name again? The clarinetist with the lazy eye? Watch it, Greek girl. You think those tips come from your hips? At least I have hips. Not everyone can get away with hiding behind smoke and finger cymbals. Serena tries again to get their attention. Please, someone come out and do a show. The crowd screams for me, not for your village wine dance. You shake like you're stumping grapes. Maybe if you didn't crawl into every booth after your set, the manager might stop calling you Denise the Disease. He calls you the Tomato, ripe, bruised, and cheap. A sudden silence. Both women stare each other down. Serena, wishing not to get between the two, calls again to the back dressing room. Denise, they're playing your entrance music. Break a leg, darling. Both. Try not to cry when I get the encore. Again. After one of the worst nights of drunken, verbal, and physical intimidation, I grabbed Julia out of bed, and with all the clothes and money we could carry, we escaped late that night. We made our way to Port Bremen, Germany. That was January 1911. I booked passage on the steamship George Washington for America. In the lower decks, we were entertained by the music and the dance of many nationalities. Your mother would attempt to mimic the gypsy-style belly dance. She saw them perform. 1960, back at the club, 2 Greek sailors are dancing to music called Zembekiko. Zembekiko is not merely a dance, it is a prayer etched into motion, a solitary flame flickering in the tavern's dim glow, a man's shadow unraveling across the cracked floor as bouzouki strings weep stories too deep for words. Zembekiko is a slow-motion cry that says, "Life has hurt me, but I am still here. I will dance." A table of American tourists, oblivious to the Greek customs, are drunk and laughing with each other. Thinking the tourists are laughing at their dance and music, the sailors walk over and lift one of the men out of his seat, ready to kill him. Serena signals to the band to pick up the tempo, gets off stage, and dances between the sailors and tourists, cleverly diffusing the situation. The tourist slinked out. Living in New York, Stefania and Julia found various jobs in the garment district. It was hard work and long hours, but they were free from Andras and the oppression back in Hungary. Julia, now 17, finds work at night singing in vaudeville performances. Hired to sing at a Republican Party event, she met Robert Bob Blake, who was also performing there. Bob and Julia married and had a daughter, Serena. She was born August 8, 1933. They started doing vaudeville performances together and brought young Serena with them. She was captivated by the whole world of show business as she watched them from the corner behind the stage. In one of their routines, politically incorrect by today's standards, they dressed up as caricatures of American Indians. The routine started like this. Indian woman, Julia. How? Indian peddler, Robert. By me is all right. How's by you? Julia. Who are you? Robert. You mean to tell me you have never heard of the great Heap Chief Medicine Man, Horseface Yankel? Julia. What tribe? Robert. The Ginsberg tribe. Eventually, Serena joined the act and performed with Bob and Julia in their vaudeville numbers. Bob named the group Blake and Blake. Serena would fill in for Julia sometimes in the Mr. Bachagaloop and the Census Taker sketch. Serena would wear a conservative dress and hold a clipboard. Bob dressed as an immigrant with a floppy hat and big, bushy mustache, holding his guitar. With her official census-taker voice, Serene would ask, "Where are you from?" Bob, "Italy." Serene, "What part?" Bob, "All of me." Serene, "Tell me about your family. Are you the oldest?" Bob, "No, silly. My mama and the papa are the oldest." Serene, "On which side are you Italian?" Bob, "The Lower East Side." Despite hiding her Jewish roots, Serene endured anti-Semitism in her school years on the west side of Manhattan. Other students would say, "Where are your horns? Jews have horns." The German-American Bund was growing at the time and engaging in activities promoting Nazi propaganda. The fear immigrants experienced in Hungary decades before emerged once more. Serene Blake applied for a job at Gimbel's department store on 34th Street. They told her she didn't have the personality to work in sales, but she could work in the basement stockroom. Discouraged but headstrong, Serene left and went to work hand-coloring photographs at a portrait studio. Color photography was still not widely affordable, so artists would hand-color black and white prints of customers, earning 50 cents to $1 a print. Hand-coloring photos, sometimes at home, Serene's apartment had the distinctive odor of Marshall's photo oil paint. Alex Radcliffe was a med student at Columbia College and an intern at Mount Sinai Hospital. He was also enlisted to serve in the U.S. Coast Guard. This was during the Korean War. Alex was also very gifted, well-read, and a clever conversationalist. He also had a sarcastic edge at times. It was his ragtime piano playing that captured Serene's heart. At 17, she was madly in love. Serene and Alex got married in '53, and in 1954 had a son, Bo. Serene's parents were Hungarian-Russian. Alex's parents were Scotch-Irish. Before their marriage, Serene's mother told her, "My intuition tells me you're marrying a man with no ambition." This would eventually be prophetic. Towards the end of his Coast Guard tour, Alex had a nervous breakdown and got an honorable discharge. As a corpsman, it was unclear with his medical knowledge how real his nervous breakdown was. His ship never saw combat. The ship, the CGC Half Moon, just navigated around the North Atlantic during the Korean War. Alex hated the structured military life and wanted out. Much to Serene's chagrin, while nearing completion of Columbia Medical School, Alex dropped out. He decided he wanted to be a writer. "Who quits medical school just before graduation?" Serene's mother asked. Alex was part of a band called the Dixieland Ramblers. He played drum set with them when a piano was unavailable. One day, the Dixieland Ramblers got a gig where the organization wanted a dancer for their Arabian Nights theme event. With her background in modern dance, having been the youngest student of noted choreographer Ruth St. Denis, Serene put together some veils, made a jeweled headpiece, and danced around with a jug, as she had seen in European Orientalist paintings of harem scenes. Alex put together arrangements and sheet music of Hollywood-esque instrumentals, including Caravan, Chic of Araby, and Miserlou. The performance was a little hokey, but Serene was bitten by the bug to further investigate Oriental dance, later called belly dance. From about the First World War on, Greek, Turkish, and Armenian immigrants fleeing Europe came to America, and many stayed in New York. Greeks, with their knowledge of the restaurant business, ethnic food, and homesick for their own country, opened belly dance nightclubs with live music. The Alibaba, Grecian Cave, The Britannia and the Port Said, the Arabian Nights, all lined 27th and 28th Street and 8th Avenue, New York City, on the edge of the notorious Hell's Kitchen. All night, 5 nights a week, the exotic sounds of the oud, bouzouki, kanun, and dumbek could be heard until 5 or 6 in the morning as they accompanied the shimmies of primarily Turkish dancers and the crooning of Turkish and Greek singers. It was a wonderfully exciting world of culture, intrigue, B-girls hustling drinks, occasional police raids, drugs, prostitution, and other gangster activities. 1959, at the recommendation of a friend, Serene Blake wandered up the musty, creaky stairway to the most famous of those clubs, the Egyptian Gardens. Dark and dingy, it was decorated with gaudy, faded scenes of the Middle East. A greenish haze of dirt and grime gave the impression it had been there for centuries. The decor was a sad, nostalgic attempt to simulate Rempedico clubs back in the old country. Serene was captivated by this hidden world. It was a wondrous escape from life. Clutching a homemade costume inspired by European paintings she had seen depicting the Middle East, Serene approached the owner, an older Greek man with a cigarette dangling from his mouth. He told her to change and dance a bit with the band as an audition. As she headed towards the back room, the oud player named Chick Ganimian introduced himself. He asked what her stage name was. Serene, she responded. That's not very exotic, he said. How about the name Fasulia, he said with a big grin. Serena auditioned with the few moves she had perfected. After, the owner, Ingleso, said she could dance there for $50 a night and a share of the tips. Ingleso: what is your stage name? Fasulia, Serena responded. With a laugh, Ingleso said, that means beans. Beans! Chick is putting you on. Serene was quickly changed to Serena. An audience of club hoppers, foreign tourists visiting New York, and sailors on shore leave would wander in and take their seats and feel transported to Athens, Istanbul, or Yerevan. Although the musicians were a mixture of Greek, Turkish, and Armenian, they were very versatile and learned each other's music. Though the language was foreign to Americans who ventured into these clubs, the melodies were captivating, and they would often hum along or mimic a phrase or two in Turkish or Greek. Sagapo, I love you in Greek, and seviyorum, I love you in Turkish, were common phrases in songs that Americans would usually learn and sing along, especially after a few drinks. Then there was Mine Coşkun and Soraya Melek, well-known Turkish singers and dancers. Night after night, Serena watched and listened to those beautiful songs from faraway Istanbul and Athens. She had never seen dancers who could isolate their hips from their upper body and move their arms so gracefully at the same time. They also sang all the really great old songs, Turkish love songs that could melt one's heart without understanding a word. Dollar bills rained on them until the floor was a sea of green. Serena was often the only American in the shows, and for a long time she was the new girl on the block. The dancers did 2 shows a night, but no matter what, they had to stay on the stage. Laws were strict about dancers mingling with the audience. Serena got home at 5 a.m., often bumming rides with the Wagner bread and pie truck deliveries. At 7:30, she got up to make breakfast and send her son Bo to school. Serena slept till 4 p.m. when her son got home from school, and she would then head off for the club at 9 p.m. This was her routine 5 days a week. The dancers there tolerated Serena because she brought in a lot of tips, but this dance was their culture. They would whisper, "Who this American girl thinks she is? Drapes around, pretend no Turkish dance." One night backstage, Aziza, a dancer, offered Serena a suspicious hand-rolled cigarette. Serena was anxious to be part of the in crowd. Not a smoker, she took a couple of puffs. The other dancer, Isel, watched, concerned. After a brief moment, Serena felt a warm euphoria followed by drowsiness and then nausea. Dazed, she stumbled onto the stage and did half a show. Under her breath, she contemplated revenge, but didn't follow through. Aziza had a good laugh. At the end of the night, the dancers would pick up all the tips from the floor, put them in a wastebasket, and then they would count and divide them up between musicians, dancers, and the club. At home, Serena would dump heaps of money collected the night before on the bed and collapse with exhaustion. Serena's husband would count the bills. Alex was still unemployed and seemed content, as if on a long, unending break from the military. He'd talk about projects he was planning. He'd sit at the typewriter. He'd tap out short but never finished stories about his time in the service or as an intern. He bragged that he worked in a traveling circus as a teen. He even claimed he was in a high diving act and divulged the secrets of the gimmicks used to make that work. Alex would sit for hours playing complex ragtime, blues, and boogie-woogie tunes on the piano. The nostalgic music of Fats Waller, James P. Johnson, and Scott Joplin would eerily echo throughout the tenement apartment. Being young and gullible and in love, Serena sort of accepted this bohemian, artistic lifestyle she was so familiar with growing up. It would bother her, though, that when going out with other couples at a restaurant, that she would always have to sneak money over to Alex under the table to pay the bill. Men were supposed to support women, especially in that era. Confused, but still happy, Serena shrugged it off, at least for the time being. Late one night at the Egyptian Gardens, the musicians wound up their song. Serena hesitantly reached for the microphone on a stand. The room grew quiet. She could feel all the eyes upon her. With a small cough, she cleared her throat. After a moment of silence and anticipation, Serena started to softly sing Mandubala. It is a romantic Greek ballad that even the Turks knew. The bouzouki player started to accompany her, along with the rest of the band. A gentleman with tears in his eyes stood up and walked intimidatingly right up in front of her and showered her with dollar bills. Serena was now an accepted part of the group. Serena had to be creative. She was warned not to steal steps from anyone else, so the lights would dim and she would dance with candles. She became known as the girl with the candles. This became her trademark and was in demand by other clubs. Other dancers were jealous and annoyed. They would exclaim in a thick Turkish accent, "Honey, you spill wax all over floor. No do, no do." Serena was the breadwinner, while Alex floated from one hobby to another, never earning any money and always draining family funds for his projects. One day he announced, "I'm starting a photography business." The apartment on 123rd and Broadway was quite large and a low rent in the 1960s. Alex painted the entire end room a depressing black and lit it with an eerie red light. Red light doesn't fog black and white film. He set up sinks in the darkness for processing film and making prints. He bought an enlarger, racks, print dryer, timer, and everything he thought he'd need, all from Serena's photo coloring and dance income. He bought a 4x5 speed graphic camera. It was like the ones news photographers used back then and very expensive. Alex would photograph dancers, musicians, and aspiring actors. He gave away the photos he took, never charged a fee for them. He claimed to be building up his business clientele by word of mouth, so he gave away the prints. Alex needed gallon jugs to mix Hypo and the developer. Serena started to notice gallon jugs, some full of Gallo wine, some empty, accumulating in the apartment. A faint odor of wine filled the apartment. About the same time, her husband developed a sarcastic, demeaning temper and would sleep large parts of the day. One night, Serena was sitting on the stage at the Gardens. As strains of an Armenian instrumental played, she glanced over at the guitar player, who wasn't much to look at. Suddenly, the dancer sitting next to Serena pinched her arm very hard. "I don't want you to look at him." I guess he was her boyfriend that week. The next night, a Greek sailor threw a particularly large amount of money at Serena while she danced. After her performance, Serena was ordered to go to the back room and hide. The sailor started a fight. He claimed that with all the money he threw, he bought Serena. He had to be restrained, was seated, and offered a free drink, but denied Serena. The owner and waiters at the Egyptian Gardens were very protective of the dancers. But one evening, a handsome, famous wrestler of the time came to the club. The club owner, Ingleso, came over to Serena and said, "That gentleman over there is very famous. Would you like to go out on a date with him?" Serena smiled, but declined. "I'm married," she reminded him. He never asked again. Serena's mind raced through an assortment of forbidden fantasies and speculation, as most anyone would. After a lot of pressure, badgering, and the help of a family friend, Alex, with all his knowledge from Columbia Med School, got a job as an insurance claims adjuster. He'd trot off to work in a suit carrying a new briefcase. All seemed strangely ill-fitting and out of character. Alex was very personable. He'd bring clever toys to work. He had a magic 8-ball. When turned over, an answer such as yes, no, maybe, or ask again later would float up through an inky cloud. It would entertain everyone by answering questions employees visiting Alex's desk had. It was a clever conversation piece. Alex could be quite charming and personable when not at home. After 5 weeks of having a steady job, Alex came trudging home in the middle of the day. "I can't work there anymore. They pressure us to deny claims," he said. A downward spiral of drinking, belittling everyone, and unproductive days got worse. He became more and more overweight. Dancing in the clubs was Serena's greatest joy and an escape from the reality of her home life. Every night was a journey into an exciting, mysterious world. It felt more and more like home to her. There was glamour, intrigue, fights would break out, drama in foreign languages, and the never-ending gossip among the dancers. Colorful characters would always wander in throughout the night. There was the intoxicating music, the aroma of lamb kebab in the smoke-filled air, and the excitement and fantasy of the belly dance shows. Serena developed her own style of Oriental, or belly dance as it was called, so she wouldn't be accused of copying other dancers. They were very protective of their steps and style. She blended traditional steps with her own new choreography involving grace and femininity. Years later, Serena would write her book, The Serena Technique of Belly Dancing. One evening, the Armenian oud player wrote a new piece of music paying tribute to the 1915 genocide of World War I. The club owner said it's too political. Serena quietly choreographed a dance to it anyway, and one night she performed it unannounced. The audience fell silent. A moment later, the room was filled with teary-eyed applause, and even the owner was moved by it. At home, Serena started to feel dead inside. Her husband's drinking was slowly getting worse. He would occasionally make a big show of plans for his latest new project, but never followed through. His days devolved into sleeping late and watching daytime television. The sound of themes from Dr. Kildare, The Andy Griffith Show, and I Love Lucy depressingly droned throughout the apartment all day, every day. If Serena meekly questioned why, "I'm studying TV script writing," he would exclaim. Alex was a little older than Serena and annoyingly clever. Rows and rows of homemade bookcases filled the apartment. There were shelves filled with medical books, issues of Scientific American, modern electronics magazines, and history books. As an avid reader, he was brilliant at arguing, debating, and demeaning others, but had little shame in being unemployed. Serena would try to argue and scold him into doing something with his life. She was working 2 jobs to make ends meet. He would make fun of the situation and even somehow make her feel guilty. He was an antisocial homebody and gaining even more weight. She was young, vibrant, attractive, and social. One time, arguing in the kitchen, she asked, "What would happen to me if I got seriously ill or hospitalized, but we have so little money saved?" He responded, "I'd do anything for you. I'd rob a bank if I had to." She responded, "How practical is that?" Crime was way up in New York City in the 70s, especially on the edge of Harlem, Serena's neighborhood. Columbia University built housing in the 50s around that area, but none of the students or faculty wanted to live there. Those projects became what the police called a rat's nest, infested with vagrants, drug dens, prostitution, and crime. One day, 2 men followed Serena and 8-year-old Bo into the lobby of a building around the corner. "Give us your money! Take that coat off, bitch!" they shouted. Serena and Bo were robbed, and she realized that they deserved better. The constant rattle day and night of the elevated subway from 122nd to 125th Street in front of her second-story apartment only added to the woes of her life. Serena had to sit on stage with the other dancers and play the doumbek, an hourglass-shaped Egyptian drum with embossed scenes of the Mideast. All eyes turned to the narrow corridor that led past the bar and the kitchen to the dressing room. Jamila Omar entered. Her cheekbones were high and sculptured, her eyes exotically slanted, her zills, finger symbols, legendary. She could start from a simple pose and reach a crescendo of dance that was breathtaking. She would give Serena a knowing wink and a smile. Back home the next day, Alex got up early. He made a big show of moving furniture. He then noisily mopped the floor. He exclaimed he was going to teach Serena some new words. "Broom, mop, dustpan," he chuckled sarcastically. Somehow, strangely, he could manipulate her into feeling guilty that he was actually doing work. That was it for his day. She worked 2 jobs, dancing in the clubs and teaching dance at Stairway to Stardom. He mopped a floor. Alex was never physically abusive, but was a master of subtle verbal abuse. He had endearing nicknames for everyone. No one at home was called by his or her real name. He had lots of invented names that could sound cute, but underneath was hurtful. Instead of calling someone Fathead, he'd make it into faux Latin. Hedus Faticus was his creation. Bo's young friends thought it was strange and amusing that Alex always called Bo Bonehead. Maybe he thought it was endearing, but it left scars for life. The idea of ever having children of his own terrified him. The thought that his children might hear and even imitate these nicknames for Bo would follow him for life. Bo would jokingly say, "Would I want children of my own? I'd know more about raising an aardvark." Later in life, Bo envied other people with children. They were true adults. On one of the trips to a Catskill resort in the mountains for Serena's performance, Alex drove the Plymouth station wagon to the gig. Serena and Alex stopped for gas. Inside was a souvenir shop. They had a wooden plaque with a cutout of a doghouse and 3 cutout dogs on hooks. There was a space for names on each dog, and one of the 3 dogs could be lifted off a hook and placed in the doghouse. Back home, Alex wrote their 3 names on the cutout dogs, Serena, Bo, and Alex. He then proudly hung it up on the wall for all to see. The more you do in life, the more the chances of mishaps. So, of course, either Serena or Bo was placed in the doghouse all the time. Alex thought this was so funny because it was so irritating to Bo and Serena. Serena would misplace a phone bill or Bo would lose his keys. Alex never put himself in the doghouse. This was comical and yet very sad at the same time. It cleverly deflected off of Alex's lack of motivation. Paradoxically, it diminished Serena and Bo's self-esteem. Alex would have Bo recite to him, "You are always right. I am always wrong because you are so smart." This would get Bo off the hook when he supposedly did something wrong. An easy out for a small child, but terribly demeaning at the same time. Although Alex rarely left the house and had no interest in employment, there was some balance of normalcy further confusing Serena. He'd cook meals for Serena and their son, read to his son Bo, often while laying in bed, teaching him about science and history. He'd buy birthday and Christmas presents for Serena and their son, but it was always with Serena's money. She was browbeaten for so long, she'd break down in tears. She felt lost, hopeless, and sick inside. Every evening, Serena would escape to the surreal world of the Egyptian gardens. It was common for people then to stuff money into a dancer's costume, either into the hip band or the bra. Some performers, such as Serena, would dance over to a gentleman waving money. As his hand reached for her beaded bra, Serena would snatch the money from his hand and stuff it into her hip band, and with a big smile, dance away. Other dancers, seeing a large bill waved at them, might be more accommodating. In some rare instances, fights would break out among dancers as someone would be accused of not emptying all the costume money into the community bucket. Sometimes a visiting dancer would not know this and think it was hers to keep. A serious confrontation would ensue. Serena often attended flea markets searching for collectibles related to the dance and the Middle East. In European art, the Orientalist period produced many paintings and statues displaying their perceived image of belly dancers, street scenes of Turkish villages, minarets, pyramids, and harems. Serena would collect every item she could find, usually at a bargain. Over the years, she filled and decorated her entire apartment from wall to wall with these fantasies of a bygone time in the Middle East. Even the ceiling was tented with bulging fabric of Turkish-style print. There were ashtrays with figurines of Cleopatra, posters for Murad Turkish cigarettes, sheet music titled The Flames of Araby, and books and magazines and videos, everything related to the dance to which she was so devoted. At home, Serena would sit beading and repairing and decorating her costumes, and all the statues would come to life and entertain and dance for her. Although Alex was never physically abusive, he became verbally abusive and sarcastic about the world outside of the apartment, but could never face his own immense shortcomings. "I'm surrounded by a world full of fools," he would haughtily exclaim. He did love Serena in his strange way. She really believed that. His expression of this, though, was only an eloquent love letter, a note, a hug, and a peck on the cheek, but that was it. He'd quickly regress back to the unpleasant, unmotivated drinker. A slowly simmering lack of respect and tension was starting to reach a boiling point in Serena. Serena's fame was growing, and her school grew enough for her to rent additional space a block away. She called the added space the Serena Studios Annex. Serena started performing on TV. She'd do 10-second spots at the end of news shows. She was on To Tell the Truth and What's My Line. Occasionally, she would have to confront the same old ignorance or misunderstanding about the dance. When asked what she did for a living, Serena would respond, "Bellydancer." "Oh, you're a ballet dancer," they'd say. "No, a belly dancer, oriental dancer," she'd retort. "Oh, you dance on your belly," they'd chuckle. It became Serena's mission in life to elevate the dance to the status of an art.
With her exquisite mastery of belly dancing and her feminine free-form style, Serena has become a one-woman campaign to change the state of the art. In the past, belly dancing has had a bad name associated with burlesque, but now women all over the country are proving that it's a lovely art, no different from ballet.
People at Life magazine discovered that a famous socialite, Katie Carson, was taking belly dance lessons at Serena Studios. They decided to do a full picture spread about Katie and Serena February 4th, 1972. Published in 17 languages, Serena was launched into worldwide fame. Serena, using the students from her school and other performers, started putting on more and more lavish productions at theaters in New York. They were often based on Hollywood tongue-in-cheek movies, memories of Serena's days at the Egyptian gardens, or recreations of scenes in the Middle East. Serena even produced a theatrical performance at Riverside Church on 122nd Street and Lincoln Center down Rush Park. Her performances received critical acclaim from Dance Magazine and from the New York Times. Alex did occasionally come up with some ideas for the theater pieces, as he was well-read and clever. He had a nostalgic infatuation with the flapper era, which Serena often dressed up as in the dating days of their relationship. Things got worse at home. Serena was leading a dual life. She was a strong, attractive woman, teaching and performing a sensual dance, but enduring a home life devoid of anything that made her feel even remotely romantic. Alex started working with her on writing her belly dance instruction book, but that was all her life and success, not his. She felt dead inside. Long gone was the memory of him in his Coast Guard uniform, an intern at Mount Sinai Hospital, or the handsome, talented pianist that she fell in love with so long ago. Serena rented a bungalow in the Catskills each summer to escape the city. Bo listened as Alex would talk to other people who listened and were impressed by the stories Alex would impart. He'd flick the ash from his cigarette, take a military stance, and dramatically talk about his days in the Coast Guard, an internship at Columbia Hospital, and high diving in the circus as a teen. The same old stories Bo heard so many times before. Alex's life had just stopped decades ago. Very strange. Throughout her life, Serena would often reflect on Stefania's stories and adventures from long ago. Arriving February 19, 1911, at Ellis Island, Stefania and Julia navigate the complex U.S. immigration system. The large registry room buzzes with voices in many languages. An immigration officer sits behind a desk facing Stefania and Julia. An interpreter is nearby. Stefania clutches her daughter's hand tightly. The examiner looks over the manifest and asks, "Name?" Cautiously, Stefania replies, "Stefania Gottman. This my daughter, Julia." The examiner asks, "Where is the father?" "No father. He bad man. Hit. We go away," Stefania responds. Stefania whispers to the interpreter, who then translates. She says the husband was abusive. They left him. The examiner makes some notes, smiles, and says, "You are cleared for entry. Your name will be called soon for the ferry." Stefania in Hungarian and then English replies, "Köszönöm, thank you so much." Julia copies her mother. "Thank you, sir." Meanwhile, two policemen startle everyone in the crowded room as they rush through to the back exit where the ship is docked. Two desperate travelers had jumped from the pier, diving into the freezing waters rather than be sent back. They had chalk X marks on their clothes. No one knew why. Stefania and Julia wander down the final ramp and kneel down on the cobblestones of New York City. Stefania and Julia are overcome with emotion. They feel they've become human again. Stefania turned to Julia. "Always remember, my child, it is never wrong to walk away from abuse and unhappiness." Serena finally told Alex she wanted to separate. He was in shock and devastated. In disbelief, but honorable, he quietly took what he needed, clothes, typewriter, and bare necessities, and moved into the back room of the Serena Studios annex. Serena was both filled with new life, joy, freedom, and hope, but confused and depressed at the same time. She still had to support him. She didn't hate him, she just had no feelings for him at all. Living at the Serena Studios annex, Alex, shaken by the separation, stopped drinking. He went cold turkey on his own. He may have never been truly addicted, as he didn't suffer any withdrawal symptoms as far as anyone knew. Serena wouldn't answer his phone calls, so he started writing to her. Alex would send her a postcard. For Serena, a postcard was reminiscent of the old days when family members on a faraway journey would write to loved ones when feeling homesick. Alex never threw anything away. He had saved those vintage cards from years ago of some special place where the two of them spent a wonderful time together. He'd replace the old stamp with a new one. He'd add just 3 words in his scratchy hand. "Still miss you." Alex clung to memories of Serena when they started dating. He realized how his infatuation with her when she was a 17-year-old schoolgirl made it hard for him to accept her as a full-grown woman with talent and drive and ambition. He said he accepted and respected that she wanted a separation, as hard as that was for him. Alex wondered if it was still possible for them to continue to work on the book. It would be a shame to abandon it. He wasn't begging for them to get back together again, but there was a heartfelt sadness to his letters. They started to converse about the book. Beau left home, went to college, then embarked upon a career at Gray Worldwide Advertising. Beau got married, but never had children of his own. Beau had a lot of resentment and pent-up anger for Alex and the unhappiness he often brought to Serena. Beau would visit Alex. Alex would talk to Beau as he sipped his tea and worked on repairing some odd electronic device. Alex would ask about Beau's classes at college and offer advice about an art project or a school paper Beau had to write. There was a flood of memories of the good times when Alex would read to Beau in bed about history and science and philosophy when Beau was little. Beau never forgot anything. As the years slipped by, Serena started to realize that the freedom she felt was a mixed blessing. Despite all the hard times she went through with Alex, there was still some tiny spark or thread of connection there. The few simple memories of playing Scrabble together and the laughter and joy so long smothered returned. They had a very complex, intertwined life together. Alex, now sober, was in some ways still the same. and yet different. He wasn't going to suddenly put on a suit and get a job. He could still have an annoying, cynical edge at times, but something was different. Now in their 60s, they bought a small plot of land on a hill and deep in the woods near the town of Woodstock. It had 2 rundown shacks on it. Late afternoon, Alex is sitting on the steps of their country cottage, trying to assemble and sand a crooked wooden birdhouse. Serena heads over to him. "If that's from another of those Girl Scouts trying to convert me to coconut cookies, tell her I'm diabetic now," he chuckles. "It's cherry pie from that place in town you always said was overrated." "Still overpriced, but edible. Sit? Or just dropping off pastry in judgment?" "Just thought I'd see how your birdhouse empire is coming along." "It's either a home for a bird or a metaphor for my entire adult life. Might be both." I miss that. The way you ruin everything with charm. They had a project to work on together. The nature, trees, raccoons, and flowers slowly brought them back together again. Somehow. As the world moved on, rents skyrocketed, disco took over the nightclubs, and traceable credit card payments replaced cash businesses that avoided taxes. The era of 8th Avenue belly dance clubs was long gone. The Mideast evolved from images of flying carpets and magic lamps to terrorist bombers and oppressed women. The new generation moved on from Mustache Pete's antiquated music from the old country. Half a century later, Serena would occasionally pass 301 West 29th Street as she rode the uptown bus. Her eyes would gaze up at the second floor of that building, which is still there. For a few seconds, she was back at the old Egyptian gardens, which now exists only as a treasured memory. The distant wail of the violin, haunting sounds of the qanun, aromas of feta and dolma, and the gyrations of belly dancers with exotic names such as Jamila, Nejla Atesh, and Saliha can still fill the senses, if only to close your eyes.